Product reformulation is crucial for bakers aiming to future-proof their business, especially in response to increasing consumer and retailer demands for healthier options. However, navigating the range of legislation and policy areas facing bakers and food manufacturers today can seem like a massive challenge. With mandatory and voluntary targets around health, sustainability, net zero to packaging and waste that all have to be juggled around completing your day-to-day work. Today's presentation will hopefully highlight how we can help support you to meet some of the targets and answer some questions around health and why focusing on health improvements is essential to future-proof your business and meet the demands of tomorrow's customers. My name is Joanne Burns and I manage the Reformulation for Health programme, which is funded by the Scottish Government and managed by FDF Scotland. The aim of the programme is to support SME food and drink manufacturers to make commonly consumed products healthier. But reformulation is nothing new. Companies have been investing and innovating in this space for decades, and more recently to support government reformulation programmes and new regulations to reduce the high fat, sugar and salt score of products, or HFSS. As a result, the average shopping basket of Food and Drink Federation member products has become healthier. Food and Drink Federation member products now contribute a third less salt and a quarter fewer sugars and calories in the GB grocery market since 2015. But a balanced diet is not all about cutting back on certain foods or nutrients. Most of the top dietary risk factors in the UK are linked to the elements of the diet that we do not get enough of, including whole grains, fruit, legumes, nuts, seeds and fibre. To address this, in 2021, colleagues in FDF launched their Action on Fibre initiative, working with 25 brands to make higher fibre diets more appealing, normal and easy for the population. In the last year alone, this has resulted in 134 new products and 17 reformulated products being brought to the market that are a source of or high in fibre, delivering a massive 190 million additional servings of fibre to the population. But what is reformulation and why should bakers get involved? It can be a very difficult area to navigate, given the amount of misleading headlines around food and health in the media. With reformulation as a word used to describe and tackle many business issues, including packaging, higher ingredient costs, sustainability and supply chain issues. But when we talk about reformulation for health, it is simply the removal, reduction or replacement of ingredients that could be detrimental to health when eaten in greater amounts than recommended, such as fat, salt, sugar and calories. We also focus on enriching products, so not just what can be removed, but what can be added to a recipe, such as fibre, vegetable and fruit, and also clear consumer information on the health of products. The logo across the top of the screen is our 8 key principles of reformulation, which forms the backbone of all areas of my programme's work. We don't focus specifically on recipe changes to meet other dietary areas such as veganism, organic or gluten-free, unless they're also improving the nutritional profile of a product. Developing products that are delicious, nutritious and safe can be a challenging and resource-intense process. Each business we work with has to move through each of the critical steps in the reformulation journey as highlighted on the screen to deliver a successful reformulation programme. I've highlighted some of the key issues that manufacturers raise regularly with us over the years. Many challenges are around where to go for help and access to ingredients and support, and also support with the associated cost of reformulation and funding. These issues have been central to the design of the Reformulation for Health programme, where we've looked to develop solutions to address each of these challenges, which I'll cover later. Now, reformulation has to meet the needs and wants of consumers. From recent research that we developed in partnership with Nesta and carried out by Levercliff, we reviewed the health drivers of consumers, as well as looking at the importance of the Scottish supply chain in the retail and food service sector. When asked on their views of making packaged food or drink healthier by reducing the amount of salt, sugar, fat and calories in them via reformulation, a fantastic 48% of consumers support this and 35% strongly support this, which really just does show how important reformulation is to meet consumer demand. From the data on the screen, we can see that when asked what type of healthier products are most important, sugar and fat reduction were the two main areas of concern. And then consumers are also looking for added benefits to their products, and that can be from 5 a day to higher fibre and protein. But you may be thinking that this information might not be relevant to bakers, that might be for other types of products. But what you can actually see when we look at the sweet biscuit category is when consumers were asked about when purchasing new biscuit products, what factors would prompt them to buy a new product, 34%, so more than a third of consumers were looking for reduced sugar options and 34% looking for healthier ingredients. And 17% of consumers were interested in portion control, which really does illustrate the fantastic opportunity for bakers to reformulate their sweet biscuit ranges to meet this demand. Now, when we look at cakes and desserts, these are consumed less regularly than biscuits, but we still had 26% of people were influenced by reduced sugar and 22% in cakes with healthier ingredients, such as oats and added vegetables and fruits. Historically, when we've worked with businesses reformulating cakes and desserts, we've found that there's been quite a debate from producers on whether to silently reformulate or health by stealth versus promoting the recipe change to customers. This really is a business decision that each business needs to make that's correct for them. If we think with this research, it really does show that if you want to grow your business, why not consider reformulating some core recipes to meet the growing demand for healthier bakery options? As food manufacturers know, their customer base, they all know who their customer base is and what their favourite and top selling products are. But no two consumers are the same. When we look at consumers by life stage, we can see that the nutritional priorities of concern have two areas that are high across all: too much sugar and consuming your 5 a day of fruit and vegetable. The main differences seems to be with younger consumers who are more concerned about protein levels, even though as a nation we're not actually deficient in protein, and choosing foods and drinks that improve energy. Whilst consumers in the 55 plus life stage list calorie levels, eating natural products and gut health as their remaining areas of nutritional priority. So it may be that bakers need to consider ways to entice new customers to use their products depending on the demographics of your consumer base. Successful reformulation often involves changing the product and not the person. Now, food manufacturers and bakers must see a positive business driver to motivate them to change an existing recipe and process. Some of the key drivers are highlighted on the screen. Some will be driven by retailer and procurement requests, such as meeting specific health targets like salt reduction targets and HFSS compliance, or meeting school nutritional criteria, whilst others will be consumer driven to provide a wider range of better for you products, or by legislation such as mandatory calorie labelling targets in England. We spend a lot of time helping businesses navigate these drivers and benchmark their products against them, which can be a challenge as they're not always aligned. For example, you could reformulate to meet front of pack labelling for green label, but that doesn't mean that you automatically meet the salt targets or HFSS nutrient profile modelling score. Each business will need to decide what driver is correct for them for their future of their business. Now to briefly consider the technical implications of reformulation on different nutrients and options that bakers can consider to improve the nutritional profile of their products. When we think of ingredients within a traditional bakery recipe that can be altered to make a product healthier, we think primarily of salt, sugar and fat. Firstly, we'll look at salt reduction. Deciding that you want to make a product healthier is not simply a process of reducing an ingredient. Many other factors have to be considered other than just flavour. While salt is a necessary requirement of many bakery components, it is sometimes used in quantities above what is technically required. Salt or sodium chloride contributes many technical functions in bakery, including stabilising the yeast fermentation rate and strengthening the dough. Salt is hygroscopic, so it attracts water, and that means it helps hold the moisture in your baked goods, retaining that texture. Any salt reduction project must consider all of these functions. For health, it is actually sodium that we wish to reduce. Reduced sodium salts can be utilised for a swift sodium reduction, And there are many reduced sodium blends or naturally low sodium salts products that are available for use in bakery products. Blends may include magnesium, calcium, or potassium in substitution of a portion of sodium. Each brings their own flavour profile and technical characteristics, and a supplier can often help you select the best blend and concentration level for your product. We actually had a fantastic salt reduction in a traditional breakfast product in Scotland called a buttery or a rowie. I wonder how many of you listening will know what that product is. And it was traditionally made for using lots of salt and fat to feed fishermen out at sea for a long time. And a small bakery in the north of Scotland actually reformulated it and achieved a 91% sodium reduction, as well as a 73% reduction in saturated fat. So if you're ever in the north of Scotland for a visit, do let me know and I'll point you in the direction of the baker. Now, sodium makes up 40% of salt. It is also present in many other food ingredients. Many additives used in baking, like raising agents, emulsifiers and flavour enhancers, such as sodium bicarbonate, sodium carrageenan, monosodium glutamate and disodium phosphate. We would definitely recommend speaking to your suppliers, as many companies already offer low sodium baking powders and such as potassium bicarbonate products to help reduce sodium levels in bakery. We do also have a sodium reduction supplier database with technical guidance on the application of each lower sodium product available for free on our website. Now, at 4 calories per gram, sugar is a staple ingredient in sweet baked goods, providing bulk, viscosity, preservation, colour, and of course, sweetness. Excess consumption of sugar can lead to health conditions such as type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. We do recommend that businesses go through a process of reviewing the benefits and issues with each method of sugar reduction or replacement and collaborate with their ingredient manufacturers. Some bakery projects may reduce the quantity of sugar in a component of a recipe, such as a filling or inclusion or topping, rather than the main part of the recipe, whereas others may choose to replace sugar with an alternative ingredient, such as sweeteners or functional fibres, including inulin or chicory root, while some may simply leave the recipe as it is and look to reduce the portion size of the product. This can be a process of trial and error to find the best taste comparison. Now, just to think about why sugar reduction is so important, the Scientific Advisory Committee on Nutrition, or SACN, advises restricting consumption of free sugars to 30 grams for adults, 24 grams a day for children aged between 7 and 10, and only 19 grams for children aged between 4 and 6. Now, the average consumption of free sugars is over twice the recommended daily amount in adults. I had a brief look at the sugar content of some products, and some cupcakes actually contained up to 41 grams of sugars each. So you can really see how easy it can be for consumers to easily reach those limits within a typical diet. Now, there are many solutions to help reduce sugar shown in the screen, or at the end of the presentation, we will have a QR code that will take you to our toolkit and our free Healthier Bakery Guide, where you can hopefully get some more solutions. At 9 calories per gram, fat is the most calorific nutrient found in bakery goods. A manufacturer mindful of calorie content or simply reviewing their specifications in response to mandatory calorie labelling and health legislation can make swift wins through fat reduction. Again, it's not simply a case of reducing by a set percentage. Fat plays many vital roles in food production, from emulsification and texture to adding flavour and moisture to a baked product. And we need to ensure that any ingredient alternative still allows the final product to be comparable in taste and texture to the consumer. The fatty chains that make up each type of fat interact differently within the body, and saturated fats can contribute to heart disease, stroke, and high cholesterol. Consumption of fats should be less than 35% of your daily calorie intake. So that's about 7 to 8 grams a day for a typical adult diet, and about 11% or 20 grams a day of saturated fat for a typical adult diet. Average consumption in the UK exceeds all the recommended limits, but a slight recipe change across the food and drink industry could help consumers stick to safe limits without removing items from their diet completely. Now, again, looking at some typical products, considering that a croissant or sausage roll can sometimes contain around 6 grams of saturated fat. So again, remember the maximum for that was 20 grams a day. You can really see how important it is to reformulate some of these commonly consumed products. And there's different ways of doing that. So consider the components of your product that include fat. A baked product that consists of a pastry or batter and an inclusion, whether that's sweet or savoury, has 2 immediate opportunities for fat reduction. By completing a nutritional analysis of your product, you can identify the biggest contributor of each nutrient. If the component is sourced from a third party, contact your supplier and request a healthier option. This is always the easiest way. We've seen amazing results from bakers who've done this, including a frozen dessert company for the food service sector who swapped the cream cheese product used in their cheesecakes to a lower fat product. And that simple swap equated to a 35% reduction in their fat content, and then also the calorie reduction for that for their mandatory calorie labelling. Food technologists have also found great functionality in using isolated starches, fibres and flours. It is now the case that the functionality of fats, including mouthfeel, structure, binding and water migration, can be replicated with such ingredients. Fibre is very low in calories, up to 2 calories per gram compared to 9 calories per gram of fat. Substituting calorie-rich fat with fibre will efficiently reduce the overall calorie content. It also brings the added bonus of fibre enrichment, adding another health benefit to the product. Many of these products are purchased as powders, which are rehydrated using water or milk, depending on your application prior to use. And the label declaration follows the ingredient origin, such as tapioca starch, wheat flour, or chicory root extract. Suppliers of these types of ingredients also often offer a free product development service to ensure optimal application of their ingredient in your product. So it's always worthwhile reaching out and asking for what healthier alternatives are available. Now to look briefly at 2 of the most relevant health targets for bakers in the UK. Published in September 2020, we had the 5th set of salt reduction targets. Now, approximately 4/5 of the salt that we consume comes from salts already in prepared foods, not added in the home. There's been fantastic progress from bakers and the wider food manufacturing sector across the previous 4 sets of voluntary salt reduction targets. Businesses are expected to work towards achieving the 2024 salt targets, with expectations for meeting the salt targets coming from retailers, procurement teams and consumers. Retailers and manufacturers have specific sets of targets, with separate targets detailed for retailers that provide an eating out of home offer, such as an in-store cafe, food on the go and a takeaway, which will be relevant to many bakers who maybe produce out of home products, detailed which include things like pies, pastries and sandwiches. The preferred approach is for businesses to gradually reduce the overall saltiness of their products, allowing for people's palates to adjust to less salty foods. It is a business decision if and how they wish to use sodium replacers, and there are 84 food groups listed in the salt reduction targets. Categories that are relevant to bakers include savoury meat pies and pastry products, bread products and morning products, cakes, pastries, fruit pies, and other pastry-based desserts, biscuits, and quiche. All new products introduced to the market should meet or fall below the current maximum targets for the relevant category. I've just popped some of them up here on the screen for you to have a brief look at, and there are slight reductions across the board from the 2017 targets when compared with the new 2024 targets. And bakers have already made excellent inroads with salt reduction work, especially in breads and morning goods, but a little more work needs to be done. Looking at the meat-based pastry products, for example, when we look at sausage rolls and pork pies, the 2017 target was 0.98, and now with the new 24 targets, they're looking for below 0.93, which may sound like a small shift, but given the functional and technical implications of salt reduction, that small reduction may need a lot of focus and resource. With a composite dish like a meat pie, we would advise that you look at where all the sources of salt come from, such as salt added to the pie shell or pastry recipe, or does more salt come from the pie seasoning itself? It would be easier to focus on one aspect of your dish rather than as a whole, and I'd recommend asking your current ingredient suppliers first to see if they have a lower sodium option before exploring other alternative ingredients. We've already seen great progress from pie manufacturers lowering the sodium within their pie shells by 50%, whilst other bakers have explored using no added salt rusks and lower salt seasoning blends in their products to demonstrate excellent salt reduction. And now to have a look at the nutrient profile model, which when you do look into it in more detail is like taking a maths exam. The nutrient profile model is a numerical scoring system used to differentiate foods based on their nutritional composition. It balances the nutritional contribution of ingredients particularly important in the diet, such as fruit, vegetables, nuts, fibre and protein, with those that should be restricted in the diet, such as energy, saturated fat, sugars and sodium. A food that generates a score of 4 or more, or a drink generating a score of 1 or more, would be deemed high in fat, salt and sugar. Across the UK, there are differing levels of application and consultation on this legislation, with it already being in place in England and awaiting consultation decision in Scotland. There are several categories that are relevant to those listening today, including sugar, confectionery and chocolate, cupcakes and cakes, sweet biscuits and cereal bars, and morning goods, puddings and desserts. And thinking back to that previous slide looking at swapping sugar for functional fibres or reduced sodium salt blends, you'll see that they'll drastically improve your nutrient profile model score by reducing your A points whilst increasing your C points. Now, early in the Reformulation for Health programme, it became apparent that the onus of reformulating didn't sit solely on the shoulders of food and drink manufacturers, and we needed to engage and collaborate with Scotland's whole food system to support positive reformulation outcomes, from ingredient producers and food manufacturers to academia, funding partners and NGOs. To facilitate this up and downstream influence, we developed the Reformulate Partnership. And if you're not one of our partners, please do simply scan the QR code at the end of the presentation to sign up to support successful reformulation. And you'll see on the screen here some of our almost 80 partners who we use on a regular basis, from contributing to our highly popular podcasts and webinars, and also exhibiting and presenting at events. Now, as I said earlier on, we aim to focus on and develop solutions for food manufacturers wishing to reformulate. We have a free-to-access toolkit on our website with a wide range of support materials, including training webinars and podcasts on specific topics such as sodium reduction, focus on fibre and healthier bakery webinars, to research in the consumer and business attitudes to reformulation. We also have a fabulous array of support guides available free to access. We have our main guide to reformulation, a guide to sensory analysis for SME, and as I mentioned earlier, our healthier bakery guide, which also is supported with a healthier bakery webinar. We also have a range of condensed fact sheets and supplier databases to help time-strapped businesses who may not have time to examine pages of technical guidance to find the section relevant to them, or to scour their suppliers for ingredient solutions. Now, one of the main challenges faced by food producers is the associated costs of reformulating. And to help industry, we've developed a range of funding opportunities over the last 5 years with external funding from Scotland Food and Drink and Food Standard Scotland. Our Reformulate Challenge Fund has operated 4 successful rounds of the fund, supporting 60 businesses with funds of up to £5,000 to support them with the associated cost of reformulation, which may include money for nutritional testing or technical guidance or academic support. Some of those products are shown, and companies, are shown on the screen. You will see many bakers, butchers and ready meal makers and haggis and ice cream and chocolate all available on the screen, who've all worked to make their products healthier. We also recently carried out a fund looking to support bakers with money from Food Standard Scotland. And we developed the Healthier Bakery Fund, and we were delighted to offer funding to 13 bakers across Scotland. Each of those products were unique. Some were looking at portion reduction and fibre enrichment, and some looking at reducing sugar, fat and salt. The funding for this project came about after Food Standard Scotland carried out some research looking at the calorie content of afternoon treats available around their office, which ranged from 43 calories up to a whopping 1,700 calories. And we were delighted to be able to support the industry to develop healthier products. And we've actually just launched a second round of funding with Food Standard Scotland, looking at healthier food service products. So if you provide bakery goods to the Scottish food service sector, please do get in touch, as you may be eligible for some funding. Here is the images or the logos of the 13 successful businesses that received healthier bakery funding. And as you can see, some of those products ranged from smaller local bakeries to food service companies, and all with a different wide range of drivers from small and medium-sized businesses, all wanting to future-proof their business to ensure that they're working to develop new products to grow their consumer base. Now, small changes throughout the day can make a big difference to people's health. Some amazing examples of bakery reformulation, including the doubling of fibre in a bread roll to achieve the nutritional targets for schools compliance. And we also have some amazing results in savoury pie reformulation, showcasing a reduction of 9 tonnes of salt from pie casings and a whopping 880 million calorie reduction from a couple of small ingredient changes. And that pattern of reduction can be used in sweet pastry products, looking at sugar and fat reduction too. With snacking, the bakery industry has worked to develop a wide range of reformulated products, from higher fibre biscuits and bars, with added benefits such as higher fibre and added fruit, veg and nuts, to portion control, with many ranges now seeking to achieve sub 100 calories or working to achieve a 30% less sugar. Now, we've quickly ran through what reformulation is and the process of reformulating, consumer attitudes and the range of drivers that motivate businesses to change their recipes, and the technical implications of altering nutrients, as well as solutions that can be used as a reformulation option. Today's take-home top tips for bakers wishing to reformulate and meet the future needs of your customers is to speak to your ingredient suppliers, many of which will have a solution for you. Consider reformulating part of a recipe, for example, the topping or filling of a cake or pastry, and ensure you get the maximum impact out of any project by looking at an ingredient change that goes across many recipes or product ranges rather than just that one individual recipe. And to evaluate your reformulation project, ensure that all pre and post nutritional data is recorded, and don't forget to download our sensory analysis guide to assist with later stage consumer analysis. Reformulation doesn't have to be a difficult process. Many of the solutions needed already exist, and it's just a matter of trialling them within your business. And remember, small changes added together really can make a big difference to the health of your business, your products, and your customers. Now, thank you very much for your time and attention, and please do visit our website or scan the QR codes to access our range of resources that can support your reformulation project. If you're based in Scotland or supply into the Scottish market, please do contact us for more information or support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanne, for joining us and for that fantastic presentation. You gave a very detailed overview of the challenges, the health benefits, to reformulation, and also some wonderful consumer insight. I find it particularly interesting when you spoke about, the differences between generations, and it's interesting to see and hear that youngsters are prioritizing, eating more proteins, for example. Obviously, we've seen a huge rise in consumer awareness around, healthier eating patterns and ingredients. What do you think could be done to continue raising this awareness amongst others that might not be so, so health conscious?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Joseph. And yeah, I find it so interesting seeing that change across the life stages as well. What I think needs to be done to maybe help future-proof our young people and developing into adults and beyond is really looking at a kind of holistic approach to reformulation and public health, so involving other partners. So yes, food manufacturers and bakers improving the health of their product is seen as one of the most important ways to improve population health. But I think we need to ensure that we're involving families and education and a lot of people in the wider food system to support healthier changes. And it's not just what we as adults are consuming, but I think when I looked at the sugar data and looking at how much sugar children should be eating, and when we see the rise in childhood obesity, I mean, in Scotland alone, it's like 1 out of 3 of our young people are classed as overweight or obese. And that's a ticking time bomb when these people do become adults as well. So I think it's really important that we also look at the foods and drinks that children are consuming on a regular basis, and remembering that they shouldn't be consuming the same as adults. So sometimes what we would maybe eat, you think, oh, we'll give the same to the kids, but they need much smaller portions and much smaller amounts. So I think there's a lot of education and work across the food industry to ensure that we're supporting the future health for young people and working together.
And in your experience, what do you think needs to be done, or what could be done to encourage more bakers, more bakery manufacturers to sort of take that leap and embark on their reformulation journey?
But answer to that, Joseph, I wouldn't be in a business. It's a really difficult question. I think historically, we've seen fantastic work by the bakery industry in terms of morning good reformulation, bread reformulation, and savoury product reformulation. Where we find the biggest challenge is sugar reformulation, for it's seen as more of an indulgent product. So it's a treat. Why do you want to change a treat product that people shouldn't be eating on a regular basis? So I think what we really need to encourage more bakers to try and look at sugar reformulation and calorie reformulation is maybe more peer-to-peer support, learning that some of their competitors and some of their fellow bakers have done it successfully, and their consumers are buying those products and it's growing. And also looking at funding and innovation support available to the industry. And that's something that we are constantly fighting for. I mean, there are people that assume that making small changes to your recipe doesn't cost a lot of money. But we all know that the associated cost of making those changes, trialing those recipes, getting them nutritionally tested and shelf life tested and changing your packaging and going to your retailer is a long and difficult process. So making sure that there is committed funding available to support the industry to do that. And we try and work with our other trade organisations like the Scottish Bakers Association to try and develop resources to really help their membership to make their products healthier. And our support is available there if any other wider organisations want to get in touch. We're more than happy to help with them if we can as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. And just to finish off, Joanne, to those watching who might have still some worries about embarking on this reformulation journey, what would be your final advice to them?
My final advice is, I completely hear you. Change can be scary. But what I would say to do is to speak to your suppliers. They are so experienced in looking at different alternatives. So for all you maybe buy a traditional normal cake fat or pastry fat from them, they've probably got other customers who they're developing lower fat ranges for or lower sodium ranges for. So I would always say, speak to your suppliers, speak to your ingredient suppliers, let them know what you're interested in. And very often their sales teams will probably have technical kitchens, so help support with some of that trial recipe and recipe development. And some even help do nutritional testing and things like that too. So always ask for help. Don't sit and think, I've always done it this way, so I'll always keep doing it that way. We've seen with the consumer research, we can't always keep doing it that way because our consumers are changing. So we need to make sure that we're supporting industry to make those products that are relevant for their future customers.
Well, for those watching, if you do have any further concerns or questions, please do reach out to Joanne and she will happily help you. Joanne, thank you very much once again for joining us.
Not a problem. Delighted to attend again this year.